to the Plymouth Township July Zoning Hearing Board meeting. Please all rise and say the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Tonight we're hearing Preet on the development at the Plymouth Main Mall. That's our only case tonight. Mr. Solicitor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the application of Preet that we began on May 15th, 2023. That was the first hearing. We was continued on the record to this evening. We are now here for the second hearing. We left off Mr. Kaplan, representing the applicant, had finished examination, and I don't believe there was any cross-examination of Mr. Seth Shapiro. We are now back to Mr. Kaplan for his next witness.
That's correct.
Yeah, I agree. Could you swear Mr. DeSantis in, please?
Take your full name for the record, please, sir.
Joseph DeSantis, DeSantis.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Please repeat for yourself, your
Yeah, I have a little bit, so.
Please, thank you.
Okay, let's start here. Do me a favor, state your name again and your address.
Joseph DeSantis, with McMahon Associates, with 425 Commerce Drive in Fort Washington.
And I'd like you to turn your attention to Exhibit A12. It's got that in the book. I don't see you to bring it on the screen. And tell us what it is.
Yes, that's my CV for my resume.
So does it accurately describe your professional and educational background?
Yes, it does.
So please describe your educational background for the board.
It's a Bachelor of Science degree in transportation from Penn State University in 1981, and I've completed continuing education courses in traffic and transportation for the past 42 years.
And are you a licensed professional engineer in Commonwealth of Pennsylvania?
Yes, Pennsylvania and 5 other states.
And tell us what a PTOE is.
It's also a professional traffic operations engineer, which is a certification by the Institute of Transportation Engineers, which is a national organization in our industry of transportation engineering.
And how long have you been practicing as a traffic engineer?
42 years.
Now tell us whom you are employed by and in what capacity.
So I'm currently a senior advisor at McMahon, which is now a Bowman company. McMahon was acquired by Bowman last year, and before the acquisition, I was president of McMahon Systems.
Please describe to the board your job duties at McMahon.
Well, as president, I oversaw 150 engineers and technicians, 11 offices along the East Coast. We primarily focused on traffic engineering and highway design.
And while you were supervising everybody, did you also get your hands dirty in the practice of traffic engineering?
Yes, my expertise is really traffic engineering, and my focus has always been in traffic engineering analysis and traffic impact studies. And I also serve as the traffic engineering consultant for a number of municipalities.
Can you still do that?
Yes, it's good.
As part of your employment duties, do you regularly study, engineer, and design traffic, roadway, and street improvements?
Yes.
And do you analyze safe and efficient access and circulation for proposed developments?
Yes, that's been the primary focus in my career.
And I guess that includes a study and analysis of traffic generated by proposed developments and any impacts on the surrounding roadways.
Yes, that's correct.
Did you prepare a traffic impact assessment for the prior application that Crete brought before this board? And were you accepted as an expert by this board during that hearing?
Yes, I was.
I
Yes, I
would,
do. Yes, I was.
thank you. I would offer Mr. DeSantis as an expert in traffic engineering and ask that he be accepted as such.
There's no objection from the township.
Any questions for Mr. DeSantis from the board regarding his qualifications? Seeing none, he will be accepted as an expert in traffic engineering.
Thank you. Are you the traffic engineer for the proposed apartment development on the Plymouth Meeting Hall campus?
Yes, I am.
And are you familiar with this project as you were for the first application?
Yes, I am.
And that was for 503 potential apartment units, was it not?
That's correct.
And this is a different application, and it's for 300 units.
That's correct.
And did you prepare a transportation impact assessment in connection with tonight's application?
Yes, I did.
That is A13 in everybody's book. As I said before we went on the record, A13 is McMahon's complete assessment. However, we don't have the inch and a half of charts and tables and calculations. I've given that, or we've sent it to Mr. Amuso, and the township has it.
That's correct.
Thank you. So, looking at A13, would you identify these materials for the record?
Yes, A13 is the traffic impact assessment completed by our firm for the Plymouth Meeting Hall apartment project. It's essentially an analysis of the existing morning, afternoon, and Saturday peak hour periods, along with a projection of future traffic, and then an analysis of the traffic volumes in the future.
And again, you prepared or supervised the preparation of this study?
Yes, I oversaw our staff's preparation of the report.
Okay. In a little bit of detail, please describe for the board what you and your associates evaluated with respect to this project.
As I said, we looked at the morning, afternoon, and Saturday peak hour periods for the existing traffic flows at the mall, and then we looked at the trip generation of a 300-unit apartment building that would be added to the mall, and we looked at what is the incremental impact in terms of level of service and delay in the surrounding roadways and intersections with completion of the apartment project.
And could you describe how you conducted your analysis?
We followed the guidelines of PennDOT, ITE, which is the Institute of Transportation Engineers, and Federal Highway Administration. We all have similar criteria for conducting a traffic impact study for development.
And did you get to the point where you compared the operating conditions or the conditions of the traffic both without the project and the traffic conditions after development?
Yes, we did.
So I'd ask you, and here I think I am going to put this up on the board. I'm going to try to. Is that good? It's about as good as it's gonna get, I guess. Joe, tell us what we put up on the board.
Yeah, that's table 2 out of our traffic impact study, and it's the vehicular trip generation table. And this is the basis for the projection of the future volumes that would be generated after completion of the apartments. We used the Institute of Transportation Engineers statistics for apartment complexes. That's published in their ITE trip generation manual, which is a publication that contains hundreds of land uses and studies that have been conducted by ITE, compiled by ITE, that have been studied all over the country for various land uses. So that report is utilized by all transportation engineers to estimate traffic generation for different types of developments. So for a 300-unit apartment complex, the key analysis periods, the morning peak hour, the afternoon peak hour, and the Saturday peak hour, IT provides data for how many trips we can expect in and out of the facility. But because the facility would be part of a larger mixed-use development, there's also an internalization component that ITE has identified for apartments within retail establishments. And when we use the statistics, the results are the top of table 2, which show that the apartments would generate a total external trips, meaning in and out of the driveway, is about 118 in the morning, 94 in the afternoon, and about 100 in Saturday midday. We also, just for comparison, to give the board an idea, what if you just, the existing office building, the IKEA building, which is 61,000 square feet, if it was simply reoccupied, how much traffic would that generate? And ITE shows that a 61,000 square foot office building, again, accounting for internalization, because office and retail does have an internalization component. It would be similar traffic generally, 102 in the morning, 89 in the afternoon. 27 Saturday, because Saturday office is less, but order of magnitude, very similar traffic. Difference really being the flows in and out. In the morning, the office is more in than out. For the apartment, it's more out than in. And then in the afternoon, the office is more out than in, and the apartment is more in than out. And that's just the characteristics of those uses. So that's the basis of the future projections, which we layer on top of existing traffic, which we've analyzed, and then we reanalyze to come up with what is the incremental impact of adding this much traffic to the existing traffic that's out there today.
I make sure I keep up with it. Could you give us, so we know where we're going, what were your overall findings when you conducted these studies?
Again, you have to look at how much traffic does a unit apartment generate, relatively speaking. 100 trips is not significant relative to the amount of traffic currently generated by the mall, which is close to well over 1,000, close to 2,000 trips during the peak hours. So adding about 100 trips, again, most of it directional, doesn't have a large impact. And what we found is overall the levels of service at all the site accesses and adjacent intersections that we studied remain unchanged when comparing without development with development. Overall, the increase in delay at the intersections were generally less than 2 seconds. There was one intersection where Plymouth and Germantown, where the increase in delay in one peak hour was an additional 6 seconds. But again, that's relatively insignificant increase of 6 seconds during the peak hours. Relatively insignificant impact.
Is this, the synthesis of that, is that shown on the tables taken from the TIS that has been marked as exhibits A18, A, B, and C?
Yes, it's table 3 in the report.
All right, give me a second and I'll bring it up. Now, this is Exhibit 18A, and would you identify it, Jim?
Certainly. So, you said it was exhibit
18A.
It's table 3 in our report, and this would be 3A, because we have A is the morning peak hour, B is the afternoon peak hour, and C would be Saturday.
I have the other two, and I'll bring them up when you...
So table 3A is the morning peak hour. And you can see on this table, this summarizes our analysis of the 8 intersections that we studied. 6 of them are around the all access points, and 2 of them are off-site intersections. You can see the levels of service in the morning. On the far left is without the development. You can see the intersections are generally functioning at acceptable, well, I should say very good levels of service in the morning, except for Germantown and Plymouth, which does have a rating of F, a delay of 129 seconds.
And that's the intersection where the traffic comes off the Blue Route and or the Turnpike.
Correct, yeah, that's heavily traveled in the peak hours. When we add in the development traffic in the morning peak hour, you can see the level of service is really do not change much. Well, in fact, they don't change at all in terms of the grade level. You can see delay does go up a little bit. At Germantown and the main access, opposite Longfall, it goes up 1.2 seconds. The other intersections are less than a second. Hickory, looks like Hickory Road, access goes up 1 second delay. And again, the biggest increase would be at Germantown and Plymouth Road. When you add in the traffic, the delay goes up about 5 seconds. But again, you're looking at an intersection that's heavily utilized during the peak hour with delays of 130 seconds. So a 5-second increase is really insignificant.
So that's 18A, and that's the morning. Let me get your next one up here. Joe, would you identify this?
Right, and this is the afternoon peak hour, and again, 7 of the 8 intersections function at acceptable levels of service. Germantown and Hickory is at a D in the afternoon. All the other intersections are A's and B's. Again, Germantown and Plymouth has the highest delay, but when you compare without development on the far left to the next column with development, the increase at Germantown and Plymouth is only 3.6 seconds. There's actually a decrease in delay at Germantown and the main axis because of an improvement that we'll show you would make a difference at that intersection. But overall, the increase in delay is insignificant.
Let me get your third one, which I believe is the Saturday peak hour.
Now, here's Saturday. Again, all the intersections are generally, again, except for one of the service A's and B's and C's, we do have that internal intersection of the mall access at Germantown Pike does have high capacity issues in Saturday, as well as Germantown and Plymouth, although it's not as bad as it is during the morning and afternoon peak hours. Again, we're proposing an improvement at that internal intersection of the mall access where Germantown Pike and the main access is, which would relieve that. But overall, less than a 2-second increase, and we actually improved the mall access internal ring road intersection considerably on Saturday.
So that intersection, the mall access near Germantown Pike and the internal ring road goes from an E without development and an F with development to a B when implemented, when your proposed improvements
Right.
are implemented.
Right. And that's primarily because we're eliminating conflicting movement, which is causing the delay at that intersection. And I can get into that when we show the improvement.
We'll get there, and then I just want to make sure we've hit everything. I'm going to go back to A14 and ask you to identify it, and I'll put it up on the board in a second. So tell us what this is.
So this is a table we produced for the prior hearing, which we've updated. And what we've been involved, McMahon has been involved with Plymouth Meeting Hall since 2005. And we did a traffic study in 2006, which started with, before the mall made any changes in terms of adding out parcels within the restaurants and things like that. So when we did the study back in 2006, these were the top line is the driveway volumes that were recorded for that traffic study. When we did the study, we took into account the restaurants that were going to be added, but we didn't account for the decrease in retail. We just left that in there. So we anticipated an actual increase in traffic. But in reality, what happened was the traffic went down, and that is what the dynamic really is, because there was less retail and restaurant characteristics are different. So what this table kind of reflects, and we've been involved with the mall. Like I said, all these years we did study for the Whole Foods, we did a study for when the Macy's closed, and each time we counted all the traffic in and out of all the driveways, and you could see how the traffic has dropped and has stayed below the peak, which was actually 2006 when the mall was all retail. What's significant about that is when we actually did the study in 2006, one of the things that came up was, well, how do we make the traffic work better? And our reply was, well, you need to widen Germantown Pike, because at the time, Germantown Pike was only 4 lanes, there was 2 lanes in each direction, where the main access is. And the only way to really improve traffic out there was to make Germantown Pike 6 lanes, which is exactly what Crete did. Crete spent well over $1 million to widen Germantown Pike in the late 2000, 2008 or 2009, in anticipation of increased traffic, which didn't happen. But they significantly increased the capacity of Germantown Pike. I don't know if you guys remember what it was like when it was 4 lanes through there. It was a bottleneck trying to get through there. Once it became 6 lanes, the main bottleneck was still pointed to Germantown Pike. That's, even though PennDOT has improved that over the years, it's still. But the bottom line is the access worked much better, the traffic flow around the wall much better, and at the same time, the volumes have been going down at the mall. So this has been updated from the table we provided at the last meeting, because we did counts in 2023, this year, which actually showed the volumes are essentially the same, or actually even less than the 2020 volumes that we were looking at, especially on Saturday. When we conducted the study that you're looking at today, we still stayed with the 2020 counts because they were higher. So our analysis is still based on the 2020 counts, even though it looks like the 2023 volumes are even lower. So then when we project the 2026 and we include the apartments, and I believe we included the potential apartment.
I think I have another exhibit. I think you're moving to A8. Let me make sure. I apologize.
Yeah, just to conclude this table, the bottom line is the traffic is lower today than it was in 2006 when we first did our first study for the wall, and at the same time, Crete paid a significant amount of money to widen Germantown Pike to add capacity to help traffic flow through there much better. And I think that's an important point that the board should be aware of.
So just to put this in context, if this report were being submitted to PennDOT, because we were going to get a highway occupancy permit or a traffic signal on a state highway, tell us about PennDOT's 10-second rule.
Well, PennDOT would require, can't say they would require definitely, but they would require for you to look at mitigation measures if you are increasing the delay greater than 10 seconds. If you're less than 10 seconds, PennDOT does not require mitigation. But if it's greater than 10 seconds, they'll ask you to look at mitigation, again, depending on how much of the 10 seconds it is. So, again, there's only one intersection where we're even close to that. That's at Plymouth and Germantown Pike. So they, if there was more delay, they may ask us to look at a mitigation there. But they would ask, there's no mitigation required at any of the other intersections.
So just to summarize this, to pick a couple of tag items. Up in the upper right-hand corner, in 2006, I think that the top number is a total number of trips, is it not, or is that just for Saturday?
That's Saturday peak hour. This is the highest hour on Saturday. There's almost 3,000 cars reported. And this is the driveway volumes, in and out of the driveways on the mall accesses. You can see Saturday is the highest, which is typical for retail. It's going to be the highest. But what's interesting is how it went down particularly because of the restaurant activity on Saturdays does decrease, when you substitute retail space for restaurant space, you would see a decrease in Saturday traffic. PM, doesn't change as much, but it still does go down. And then the morning, the activity in the morning is restaurant and retail is not too different, but there's not as much activity in the morning.
Moving on from the accesses, did you also analyze internal circulation within the mall in order to determine whether any improvements are necessary or would be advantageous as per section 1101E of the zoning ordinance?
Yes, we did. That was one of our charges, to look at the internal circulation, and see where some issues could be addressed.
So I put Exhibit A8 on the board, and I can zoom in on the various places, but tell us what this overall is.
So this is the overall site plan for the Plymouth Mini Mall, and in yellow are areas of improvements that we'll go through and highlight for the board that we believe will help circulation throughout the mall.
Okay, well, I'm going to try not to ask you a lot of questions because I think you can do a better job of just walking us through. And you tell me where you want, what you want to talk about, and I'll try and blow that part of it up.
Right, and I'd like to start at the biggest problem with the mall, which is that internal T intersection at Germantown Pike, the Germantown Pike access. If you can blow that up.
Try it.
So the problem with the intersection right now is it gets congested because of the short throat of the driveway, the traffic coming into the center, into the mall. At the same time, traffic is crossing to get out of the mall.
Go up there and use my pointer, if you can.
I'll try. That's my finger. Right, so traffic is coming in while traffic's trying to get out, and they cross each other at this location, and what it does, it holds each other up. The drivers hold each other up trying to get out, and what we've observed is a lot of green time to come out. The traffic is hung up here and they can't get out. What our proposal is, eliminate this left turn because it's really not necessary. Traffic can enter this side of the mall either by going up into this driveway or simply going in off of Hickory. So if we can channelize the traffic to just go to the right, then they're no longer conflicting with the traffic getting out. So what that does, that allows the traffic to basically stage much more efficiently so that when the light does turn green, they can flow much better. There is some cross activity, but it's very light in terms of traffic coming across. And our analysis is showing that eliminating the inbound conflict significantly increases the capacity of getting through this intersection and improves this whole area. So that's our first recommendation. Our second recommendation is...
Let me see if I can give
Is
this
this
a little better.
Sorry, touch screen. Oh,
It is.
So our second recommendation is this area of the curve where what we're seeing is as traffic comes around, they're really converging with the traffic coming in from this right in only near the loop oil. And they're converging too quickly, and it causes some issues where they merge. So what we're recommending is adjusting the curve, keeping them more separate, even putting in delineators, so that as they come around the curve, they stay in their lane, separate from the traffic coming in, and they're more on the straightaway before they start weaving. So that's a second improvement. The third improvement is, we understand the difficulty of making this right turn because it's a very
Identify it, Joe.
this is
for
the
record.
right this is the right in
By the loop oil.
by the loop oil. And you see it's a small radius and it comes in straight. So what we're recommending is basically a taper transition to let traffic come in quicker, get off of Germantown Pike in quicker fashion, and then go into a curve. And again, this is a schematic, and we can do a lot with making this curve even more gentle. So traffic comes off of Germantown Pike in quicker fashion and comes in and lines up better. So we think this will dramatically improve this whole area for traffic coming in to the mall. The next improvement, but I can do it.
Sorry, it took my job.
I
Go
got
ahead.
it. This internal T intersection, which, here's the Whole Foods here, and then here's the Miller Ale House. One of the problems with this intersection is the alignment is not as well as it should be, and through traffic is basically lining up with the left turn traffic. Our recommendation is to widen this out so that through traffic aligns more with the through lane, and the left turn lane lines up with this designated area. So the alignment through this intersection would be improved. The next area going around the Circulation Road is where the old IKEA building used to be, or is, I'm sorry, currently. The way that's configured right now, the Circulation Road, the Mall Ring Road, actually brings you down into the IKEA driveway, into the IKEA building parking lot, and you have to know to basically turn to go in between the garage and the IKEA parking lot. What we're proposing is to actually reconfigure the road to simply take traffic around the curve better. And then if they want to go into the apartment complex, they would have to actually make a right turn so that the circulation of the ring road is clearly defined. And then we bring the traffic through in front of the Whole Foods garage. And then we would improve this intersection to make turns at this intersection much more efficient. Let me see if I can. And encourage traffic, actually, what we want to do is encourage traffic to circulate around the movie theater, to continue their travel around the ring road, as opposed to coming up this aisleway and then cutting across where the office building is. So our goal is to ultimately encourage traffic to circulate around the mall, and then ultimately bring them out to Hickory Road. Because this traffic light is somewhat underutilized, but it does get bogged down a little bit. So what we're recommending for this traffic signal up here, what happens is it's a two-phase operation. It's Hickory and then it's the mall access. But what happens is most of the traffic coming out of the mall wants to turn left, but because they get held up by traffic on the opposite side, a lot of traffic doesn't get out this driveway because of that, and particularly because a lot of buses exit this driveway, and it's tough for the buses to get going when traffic is coming out on the other side of the road. Our recommendation is to put in a left turn arrow at the traffic light so that this approach can get going and clear out this approach before the other side starts up. The other side doesn't need a lot of time, so we can shorten the green time to, most of this traffic turns right coming out of here. And we could shorten up that green time. But the big thing is to improve the green time with an arrow to get this driveway going. Again, it'll improve the flows in and out of here, and we could take advantage of adding better directional signing and improving a lot of this geometry to get traffic to go around the Hickory Road and to get out. So those are the improvements we're recommending. And I think the Creed is committed to doing them with this project. Okay, Mark?
Yeah, I'm just checking my notes. I think that you hit all of them. So, Mr. DeSantis, in your opinion, will the proposed apartment development substantially increase traffic congestion in the streets or within the mall property?
No, it will not.
And in your opinion, will the proposed apartment development endanger the safety of persons or property by improper location or design of facilities for ingress and egress?
No, it will not.
Peter?
Thank you. Can I try some of these exhibits? Are they
Tell me
up?
what you want and I'll help.
Sure. So the first trip generation chart, I believe it was A13, it's page 7 of what's on
Give me the number. Do you remember the number?
let me see.
A30.
Table 2. Trip generation. Oh, is it
17.
Yeah, it's A7.
18B?
No, there's the
okay,
generation.
Thank you. So, Mr. DeSantis, you use for all these calculations the 300 apartment units that Pre is planning to build?
That's what we do.
Okay. Are you familiar with a building called the Keystone Building at the mall?
That's the office building?
The old state office building,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
All right, are you aware that 150 apartments are going to be built into that building?
Yes.
All right, but you didn't take that into account with these trip generators?
It is in our analysis. We say that in our report. This is the trip generation of apartments that Creed is proposing, but in terms of our analysis, we did factor in that traffic.
So what's the purpose of this chart?
To show just the 300, what the traffic of 300 units would generate.
So sometimes you did 300 and sometimes you did 450?
Well, no, we did 450 just to see whether the driveways get affected with the traffic. So we want to make sure the driveways work.
May I ask a question, just something I'm unclear of? When you're talking about the existing office building, are you talking about the building that is going to be converted into apartments, or are you talking about the IKEA building? Which is
the
a
IKEA
hypothetical?
building.
But that's hypothetical, right?
Wait, I'm sorry. Say that again.
Okay, when this existing office building, is that the hypothetical based on the old IKEA building? Is it more actually being used as an office, or is that the Keystone building that's going to be converted from offices to
I
apartments?
think that we're mixing two things here.
I believe I thought it was the IKEA office building.
But that's what you testified before, that on this chart, it's the 300 units that Pre is going to build, right?
Right.
And then the existing office building you said was the old IKEA office building that Pre's proposing to convert into apartments.
Tear
correct?
down, I guess. I don't know. I don't know how you
Converted into
So the net
apartment.
increase is 6.
But that's the building you're talking
The
about, right?
site, the site of the.
So, look, that's it.
Oh, hold on, guys. You can't do.
The
all
phrase
trying-
existing office building,
One
in
at a
your
time.
mind, what does that mean?
That's the existing building that occupies the site where the apartment building.
Let's use some specific phrase. Did IKEA used to have offices in this building?
I honestly can't tell you for sure. I always thought that was IKEA's office building.
But you do not mean the really tall white building that's being converted into apartments, the Keystone.
No,
Okay.
that's 150 units. We're aware of that, and that traffic was factored in our analysis.
All right, but for this chart, it's the 300 units that Preet's going to build,
Right,
not the 150 units that Keystone's going to
not on this chart.
build. Okay. And then the office building is the old, very small building that IKEA used to have offices
Right, the 61.
in, and not the Keystone building. Is that
Right, yeah,
explained?
yeah, thanks.
Okay.
Thank you both, appreciate it.
Sure, sure.
Yeah, but I think there's, just so we're clear, Joe also said that in doing his analysis of the overall intersections, he took into consideration the traffic from the IKEA building.
Right.
I'm sorry.
Oh.
The traffic from the Keystone.
But I guess to walk me through, I mean, so why didn't you include it in this chart?
Because we were just comparing, well, first of all, we wanted to know how much the 300 units generate. Because that's what our study was based on. What's the
You just said it was also based on the Keystone.
Yeah, but we need to account for other traffic, whether it's the Keystone, whatever else is going on in the area. We always do that. We always have to account for other activity in the area, whenever we do a traffic study. Can't ignore that.
All right.
But our study is, what is the impact of 300 units? That's what our study is.
But this has nothing to do with the traffic study you spent all this time talking about.
It has everything to do with it.
Okay.
We did a study of what is the impact of 300 units on Bloomington Mall.
But then you did another study that included the Keystone apartment,
No,
and you
this-
kind of blended it together
No,
somehow?
our study of the impact on the mall, we had to include what we knew was going on, which we knew what was 150 units also being added to Wilson. We added that traffic in also. It's basically in our future without development, because what we do 3 steps. We do existing traffic, then we do future without development, where we take into account, okay, what's happening if these 300 units aren't built? And then we add in the 300 units to say, okay, what's the incremental impact of 300 units? That's the process. And that's how every traffic impact study is done.
All right. So, I guess for chart, I guess it's 7B, 18B, 17B. 18. All right, so can we pull up 18C, I guess it is. All right, so when it says with redevelopment on here, you're saying now suddenly this chart includes the Keystone building?
So without redevelopment, it includes the Keystone.
So without redevelopment, assumes the Keystone building exists.
Correct.
With redevelopment is only for the 300 units. So the mall access and internal ring road, that goes from E to an F, right? That's over the 10-second rule we talked about for PennDOT.
No, well, which intersection?
Sure, so it says mall access near Germantown Pike and internal mall ring road. You see it says E, 44.7 seconds, and then with redevelopment, so just with the 300 units that Preet's going to put in, that's going to add, it looks like 11 seconds exactly to the intersection. So that would trigger that PennDOT rule we talked
Right,
about.
which is why we have the next column, which is with redevelopment and with improvements.
Right.
That's
And
what-
so, and just so,
Finish. Let him finish.
sure, go ahead.
Right, so that improvement is actually going to take that internal intersection, from an E to a B. Again, because we're eliminating a conflict, which is what causes the delay.
Okay. So the improvement that brings it to a B, you're saying you're basically eliminating that left turn in that internal intersection. Where are those left turns going to?
Well, again, they're coming from either, if they're coming from south on Germantown Pike. They're going off Hickory.
So let's go, so you're saying the improvement that shows it to be, you're shifting those left turns up to the Hickory Road and Mall Access Fountain Road intersection?
We're shifting it up to Hickory Mall and Fountain. We're shifting them to, I'm trying to find it. Germantown and Hickory. We're shifting them up to Germantown and Hickory first, into the left turn, as opposed to a through movement. Now they're in the left turn. And then we're sending them in basically as a right turn into either the right out access on Hickory or the signal at Hickory.
So you're, for the B improvement, you're shifting all those left turns to the intersection below, Germantown Pike and Hickory Road. That's where all those left turns are going to go now?
The left turns that are going in, that are going to go back up, which is not a lot of traffic. There's not a lot of traffic that comes down to the main access, comes in, and then goes back up towards Hickory. It's not a lot of traffic. So we just, that little number, which we segregated, is just going to turn at Hickory. The majority of traffic is coming in from the Turnpike area, not just the Turnpike, but from that area. They come up, they turn right, and then they turn left. What we did was, we kept them straight, and they went up to the next driveway, which is a right in, because they can't turn left anymore. We're going to cut that off, so they're going to go up and turn right in at the next driveway.
Right. Oh, come on. So I'm just trying to figure out where the traffic that you have prohibited to get to the B, where is it going? Where are those cars now moving to?
They're going to other driveways.
So which one?
Well, again,
You got to go somewhere, right?
Right.
You got to get into the mall.
the
So
majority are going to continue on Germantown Pike and go in the next driveway.
which one of those is it?
It would be Germantown and Mall right in, right out access. The second one,
Okay.
which stays an A, because the
So-
right,
so-
yeah.
Even though you're adding all this traffic, you're saying it doesn't impact the time at all?
Yeah, because a right in is basically a free flow. It's generally always an A. So there's plenty of capacity to turn right in.
So all the traffic that you're saying reduces the mall.
It's not a lot of traffic, but go ahead.
All right, but this is your chart, right?
Yes.
You made this chart?
Yes.
You agree with this
I
chart?
agree with this.
Okay. So you're saying the traffic that you've taken out of the mall access near Germantown Pike and internal Mall Ring Road, enough traffic that reduces the delay from 55.7 seconds to 12.6 seconds. What is it, like a 30-second improvement for that intersection?
Right.
Okay, and you're saying you're sending that all to the Germantown Pike and Mall access, right in, right out access, and it has no impact there?
Yes, that's right. Because it's more efficient for them to use that driveway. There's plenty of capacity. The reason it goes to a B is because we're eliminating a conflict. That is a tremendous reduction in delay when you're not waiting for anyone to be there. There is no conflict for the traffic coming in, turning left, who have the right of way right now. So that's why it goes to a B. It's really not the volume. It's not a lot of volume. It's just that it's enough to hold people up and it introduces delay. So we're eliminating that conflict and it eliminates a lot of the delay at that intersection.
All right, and I know I've asked the answer, it has no impact then on where you're sending all this
No,
traffic?
because yet the driveways they're going to have no delay. So they're just flowing in.
So those 30 seconds just disappear?
Yes, I guess so.
No further questions.
Redirect Mr. Kaplan.
Oh,
Board questions for Mr. DeSantis? Oh,
Yeah,
Marty,
I-
absolutely.
I guess that's a question and a comment. All this analysis, the numbers and trips are people coming in and out of the mall. Right? The other issue is across the street from the mall, Lawnfall Road. That development, there's not very many ways to get out. There's the back way, but they don't take you anywhere. The only way really is to get out Lawnfall Road. I think one of the concerns is that more traffic coming out of Germantown Pike makes a left on Germantown Pike. That backs up past Lawnfall. People coming out of Lawnfall to make a right. Already the traffic's to the light and beyond, so that's going to increase the amount of time it takes someone to get out of Lawnfall to get onto Germantown Pike. I think I would bet that's a concern of all the people who live in that development.
Well, again, you're probably talking about the delay at Germantown Plymouth. It's backing the traffic.
Right.
Yeah.
But I've seen it back up, at least, well, I'm retired, so I don't have to worry about rush hour, but in the mornings, I'm pretty sure it'll back up past Lawnfall. So if you're coming out of Lawnfall and make a right, there's all cars there, and you gotta wait till the light changes down to Plymouth, and then they start going, and then you can come out. So I think
Right.
I would bet that's a concern of the residents in that development.
Right, and I guess all I can say is the analysis is showing that the number of trips that the department may add to that movement will not increase the delay significantly. So if that's occurring now, it's going to continue to occur. But I do want to give Creek credit again, because that was a lot worse before they widened that to 6 lanes. It was a lot worse.
Agreed.
You know, they did increase capacity, and they haven't increased the traffic. It's kind of-
Okay, I got no further.
Mr. Daly?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm still curious about this data on Table 2, the existing office building. Where, into which of the buckets did you factor the traffic from, or for the trips generated by the Keystone building? Is that lumped in with the apartments, or is that lumped in with the data of the existing office building, which is the old IKEA?
So that's in our future without redevelopment number.
Okay.
And, I guess on page 6, we list the developments we anticipated.
wait, tell them what exhibit you're talking
Oh, I'm sorry, the traffic study, page 6.
All right, okay.
Well, let's find it.
A13.
That's your page 6, yeah.
You're right, A13. You want Joe to show you where those numbers were added?
I'm just curious, yeah, I mean, the reason I ask is just, I'm still sort of stuck on this thing with existing office building, because there really is nothing, there's nothing coming in and out of the IKEA office building as a business facility. I mean, it's an inert structure, right? Nothing's happening.
Right, and so we didn't subtract any traffic out.
Right.
If there was activity there, we would have subtracted
Right.
traffic out, but we didn't subtract any traffic out.
Okay, so this is based on, say, the traffic that you've observed with this inert structure there, but there's just what's happening within the mall in general, within the mall property. Okay, thanks. I have no further questions, thanks.
Mr. April.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a few questions, and they're on different slides, so,
What do you want? Tell me what.
Mark, let's switch it around a little bit. The slide that had the picture,
The big overall.
the overall,
Okay.
we can talk about some things on there, right? Yeah, you could zoom in a little, that'd be great.
You tell me where you want me to zoom in.
Just make it bigger.
I'm
The whole
running,
thing.
it's falling off the,
Okay, so just for clarification, Joe, just for clarification, so the right turn off of Germantown Pike will still be allowed. However, you won't be able to make a left turn onto the ring road. At the center,
Entrance.
what do you call it? Which driveway is that? Germantown and Lawful, yeah.
let me make sure, this is what you're talking about. Mr.
That's like one of the main, that's like the main
Look,
entrance to the mall,
just
right?
Let's make sure you guys are talking
Yep,
about the
right
same.
there.
Okay.
So we're saying you're still going to allow the right turn, but you're not going to allow the left turn after you come in to the mall.
Correct.
Okay. And you're going to direct that traffic down to the next right in only, correct?
Somewhere along here.
Yeah, just come down, Mark, a little bit.
Right.
Right there.
So now how is that going to affect outgoing traffic? I use that out all the time because it's quick. But you got to watch because people coming in, there's no stop sign or anything.
Right, they have the
So
right
it's
of
just a
way.
nightmare. Like you got to be careful.
You mean the out that's above the main entrance now?
Right, where the new what's that store where you put the baskets in?
Right, right.
Bowls, thank you.
Chipotle, yeah.
Chipotle, right near the Chipotle there.
Right.
Okay, so what analysis has been done for outgoing traffic with the increase of incoming traffic? And I know you said it's not a lot of traffic, but I think you will find that it is, especially with Chipotle there.
No,
now.
we did count the driveway. We did analyze the driveway. And again, there's no significant delay. It's level service A to get in and out.
Okay. Okay, so let's just talk about your level service A, B, C, whatever. You talk about counts in and out. Weekday morning, in and out. What time is that? It's peak, but what time is it during the day? What's the
Well,
time?
I'd have to go into that thick thing, but I can tell you generally, we look at 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. We look at that 2-hour period, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m., and we pick the highest hour within that time frame. So it might be, 7:45 to 8:45. It's the highest
Okay, so
hour
theoretically,
in a 2-hour
with a
period.
new apartment building with 300 more units, and how many cars are going to come with 300 units?
So
The
again,
chart shows it.
yeah.
You want me to bring the chart back up?
Which chart? It shows cars or trips?
Yes, it shows trips.
No, I'm talking about cars, not trips.
I was talking about, which one do you want up?
Well, table 2 it is trips. There's
Okay.
inbound and outbound trips that we need to account for.
Okay, bring that chart up for a second. And I'm jumping around, I apologize. I think you did a great job. I just need some clarification here. When I read this, weekday mornings out is 91 units or 91 trips.
Right, that would be
Right.
91 cars are leaving in the morning.
So that's 91 cars.
Yeah, you could, yeah.
And that's less than 30% of the apartment going to work. Does that
Statistically,
sound
that's-
logical?
Yes, yes.
That
yes,
sounds logical.
Yes.
Third?
Again, This is based on IT statistics for apartment complexes. And it makes a lot of sense because people tend to start heading out to work anytime, 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning until 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning. So
Well, I
the
can tell you,
highest
my
hour-
neighborhood empties out.
highest hour
My neighborhood empties out in the morning, and it's more than 30%. I'm thinking of percent, not trips or cars. I'm just thinking of how many cars are in my neighborhood at 5 o'clock and how many cars are there at 8:30 when everybody goes to work. This is based on the ITE Land Use Code, 11th edition. When was that updated last?
It should have the date.
There's not a
Very,
date.
very recent.
Yeah, 11th edition is pretty.
Within the last 5 years, last 10
Yeah,
years?
definitely.
The
Definitely.
last 2 years, isn't it? 11?
Yeah, I apologize. It should have been in the
Okay, but you're saying it's within 2 years?
It's
right?
recent.
Okay.
It's the most recent.
So, and then weekday afternoons, what's the time frame there?
Well, again, for analysis between 4 and 6, it's the highest hour between 4 and 6, 4 o'clock and 6 o'clock.
Okay. And now, not as many people are coming back. Does that make sense?
Well, again, statistically, most people are coming in. Look, 57 are coming in. And again, there's insular, because it's part of the mall now, again, IT has studies that they have statistical analysis that tells them you have a mixed use of apartments within a retail restaurant facility. It's different than if it was standalone. If you have a standalone apartment complex, the total would be roughly 117 in and out. But because it's part of the mall, there's interaction where some of the traffic was destined to the retail, would ultimately wind up at the apartments later, or they live at the apartments and they go to the retail first. There's whole dynamics going on that.
So this is not just coming into the mall, this is just coming into the apartment building and leaving the apartment building.
This is in and out of the mall because it factors in the internalization. In and out of the apartments would be the 7245. That's in and out of the apartments. In and out of the mall is 57 and 30.
So that's what internal trips mean.
Right.
Okay. So when I come back from work, instead of going right home, I stop at and get a bowl of
You
rice.
stop at Whole Foods or you stop at Miller's Ale.
Okay, that's an internal trip.
That's an internal trip.
Okay.
I thought you would have said that's an internal secret.
The Germantown Pike traffic light or signal, who regulates that? How many times it goes red and green? How is that regulated?
Well, the township is responsible for it, but any changes to the signal timing, PennDOT has to approve it.
It's a state road.
Okay, so when you have a schedule in here about 2006, 2013, 2017, 2019. Obviously, we went through some economic cycles, the mall changed, right? I guess in 2006, it was at a peak for inside the mall retail.
Right.
I'm assuming that's where all your traffic's coming from. Then it went down. Then you had the 2013 Whole Foods. It started. I guess you don't have anything between 2006 and 2013. Theoretically, it came down and then it's bouncing back up,
Right.
right? Then you came back down when Macy's closed. And then when you repurposed for the Macy's project, which has created quite a bit of traffic.
Right, it went back up. Yep.
So I know you keep touting the 6 lanes. We need them.
Right.
You definitely need them. Just because you put them in, whenever you put them in, doesn't mean when the volumes went down, they weren't needed, because they're needed and they're used.
Absolutely.
I drive that road every day, and you can never make that light anymore because it's always red. It's always switching quicker. And my thought is it's because there's more traffic going in and out of the mall. I mean, you're the expert. Is that a valid assumption, or?
I'm not sure exactly what you're saying, but you know, the light is, I would imagine the light has some type of actuation. So it does,
Well, that's why I said who regulates it, because you would be able to come off that turnpike and make it all the way past Walton Road, and now you don't have a shot. And it's because of all the traffic that's coming in and out of the mall, because of the hamburger joint. The Dick's and the Michaels are doing great. The hairdressing places, yeah, they're booming. That side of the mall is booming. I don't know about the other side, but that side of the mall is booming. And it's all coming out on Germantown Pike. And I thought that's why the lights are changing more, but I would defer to you.
well, again, all I can tell you is the level of service analysis is showing, you know, that they're acceptable levels of service. Now, whether they were better and they're still okay, but they're not as good as they were, I think there's some validity to that.
Right. And then if you put 300 units, they're going to get worse.
Right, but our point is 300.
They don't get worse that bad.
units-
I get it. The footnote on this page, number 2, says that we're capped at 20%. I'm not sure what that means. Internal trips are capped at 20%. What does that mean?
Because the mall is so large that the internalization statistics had a bigger number, and just to be conservative, we capped the internalization at 20%.
A bigger number meaning you give more,
Yeah,
more
yeah,
credit.
it's more like a
Would have
30.
lowered the numbers.
It would have lowered the numbers even more.
Because you would have had more internal trips.
You would have more internal trips. And that's because statistically, the mall is so large compared to the apartments that's just happened to do that. So we kind of limit the internalization. Again, all this is estimates. And again, this is all theoretical. But I can tell you from my experience.
I think that's the problem, but
Well, no, but I can tell you from my experience, IT's data is.
that's why I asked you when it was last updated.
It's very reliable. It's very, I've been doing this for 42 years. I'm amazed at how many times we've gone back after studies are done, and we're right on what IT said was going to happen. I'm not just saying that. I'm just telling you that that's IT statistics. You're talking about 20, 30 years of statistics that they keep building on. It's not like they just do a study and they keep adding more statistics, so they get more and more reliable. So I feel that you can count on it being pretty accurate.
Just to follow up on that, you made a comment that you substituted retail space for restaurant space.
As they created some of those out parcels, they removed retail space, yes.
So, but I thought the out parcels were all pads and parking lots, and that the retail space didn't change.
Again, I'd have to go back to those studies, but there was reductions in retail as they added restaurants. I don't know the exact number.
So the number of stores inside the mall became lower?
Whether they did like they did with the Macy's, where they cut out some of the retail and put in parking and things like that, I don't really know exactly. All I can tell you is the amount of retail reduced when they added
Okay.
the restaurants.
Question on traffic light changes. How many seconds does a traffic light normally change?
Well, cycle length of a traffic light is typically 90 seconds. It could be 2 minutes. So it cycles 90 seconds or 2 minutes, and then whatever portion of green time of that, say 2 minutes, you might get, Germantown Pike might get, over a minute of the 2 minutes, and then the side streets might get
Less.
less.
So
And
the
then
cycle
you have
is-
clearance intervals and things like that.
So the traffic light on Germantown and Plymouth that's more than a four-way, right? Because you got left turns,
Yeah, Germantown Plymouth is probably a longer cycle length
and then this adds trip length, this adds seconds to that intersection.
it adds delay.
It adds seconds, right? That means you're
Right, right.
delayed.
So again, it's the.
Because when I get off the turnpike, I can never make that light.
Right.
And I'm lucky if I make it on the first change.
Right, I think it said we were in the neighborhood of 130-second delay.
And there's no way that Pre could make an improvement there. That's not their property,
No,
right?
it's not their, it's not their responsibility.
Is it coming up Plymouth Road inclined toward Germantown Pike, you mean, when you get off the turnpike?
Yeah, you could go straight over Plymouth, you can make a right on the
Right.
Germantown,
Right.
left on the Germantown.
Right.
And it's the Blue Route,
Yeah.
it's the Turnpike, and it's the apartment buildings.
Right.
And anybody coming in from White Marsh.
Right.
Ring road improvements, can we go back to that? I'm sorry, I just,
While we're doing that, by the way, if I may, I just wanted to mention, ITE released the 11th edition of Trip Generation Manual in September 2021, so it's about 2 years old.
there you go, you're right. Thanks for that,
You're
Brian.
welcome.
You want me to blow anything up?
No, that's good. Because I like the yellow line that goes out to Hickory Road. You know, that one's near and dear to my heart.
We know that's near and dear to you.
So, the improvements are in red, right?
Red and yellow.
And are any of the improvements construction improvements, or are they just relining roads?
Well, there's construction involved with just about all of them. The ring road behind the movie theater and back around is more signing than actual physical.
So where you see Whole Foods, and you mentioned this, you got to manage that geographically to get around there, right?
Right.
So why wouldn't they just do a yellow line from Germantown Pike right to behind the Acme Theater? Why wouldn't they just make that road, develop it that way, and have some kind of bridge or something there for the road to make that clean? Is that would that be a recommendation? Would you think that would be better than these recommendations? Just in that area?
Can we put that out again? I wasn't sure. where
You see where it says Whole Foods?
Right.
And then right
Wait,
below
wait a
that,
minute.
you got the reds?
Dominic, hold on. Where do you want me to put this? Is this what you're talking about?
Yep, right in there. So you see where that pointer is, and then it makes a left, and then makes a right? And right now, there's nothing, it's the old office building, that's all getting demoed, right? With this, so why wouldn't the developer just make the road go straight?
Because that's where the new apartments are going to be.
Yeah, but why wouldn't you, it's only that's a parking lot, that's not apartments, right?
Yeah, that's part of, yeah, I think you're right, that's parking lot here. But Seth, help me.
That's the apartment.
That's the apartment building.
Yes.
It's the apartment building.
So isn't there a way to straighten that out better, to make it more efficient? Or it just costs too much money?
Joe, I don't know what would be involved in what Mr. Crowley is saying.
Well, it would bisect the site, so I don't know.
Yeah, but you could build a bridge or a tunnel, right? They do that all the time.
That would be a lot of money.
That would be a lot of money. But something could be done more efficiently than still taking your geometry there, going around the Whole Foods and then a right and a left. That was just one thought.
That alleyway is the access for the Whole Foods parking garage. So
Why would you change that?
yeah, we're trying to make that more
Right,
efficient.
okay, so you wouldn't change that. So let me ask you, and this is the one that's near and dear to my heart. So people in that apartment complex could go out on the Germantown Pike, right? The way you're going to configure this?
They could go Germantown Pike, they can go out Hickory Drive. We're going to encourage them to go out Hickory Drive. We think that's going to,
So how do you encourage them?
well, you could do that. I mean, they're residents, so you can,
Wouldn't having that long yellow driveway out the Hickory Drive, and you don't have to use that main exit. You got another exit there that it's not even talked about.
yeah,
Um,
that could serve as an access, but to turn left out of there, you really need the traffic light. So you want to direct them to the traffic light so they can go any direction. But yeah, if they want to go to the right on Hickory Road, they can go out that first drive. You're right.
Well, that would keep traffic off of Germantown, off your main problem area, which one of the things you really haven't addressed, you put the hamburger place right on the ring road. And now people come out between the hamburger place and the old Macy's and block that. But you don't show that at all on here. You don't show any improvement of that. And that's where I've seen a fist fight because people are waiting and then the traffic channels all the way back to the curve. So
Right, and that's,
wouldn't there be a need for some improvement?
but that's where we believe this will diminish that.
Actually, the left turn helps that because the left turn stops the traffic and lets people out of between the hamburger joint and I guess it's a median.
But our goal is to get the traffic out more efficiently, so they're not queued up on the.
I agree. But if you let people come out between the hamburger joint and the median, you don't show it on here. I don't think you counted it. I haven't heard about it. But if you go there and you watch, you'll see. I'm just telling you. Just the last question. Can you tell me what the impact would be if there was a designated driveway off of Hickory Road to this apartment complex? Have you looked at that at all?
I could tell you just from the analysis that it wouldn't really change much because we're simply utilizing the existing driveways and there's no impact, no significant impact on any of the driveways. So
You don't
to build
think-
a separate access just for that little bit of traffic, it doesn't really affect anything. It's just you're building another access for no reason.
Well, you have the access there. You just
Exactly.
all you have to do is restripe it. You don't have to build it. And you're talking about taking a lot of traffic, not a little bit of traffic, off your intersection at Germantown
How are you doing
and the main entrance there.
I'm sorry, I gotta object. You gotta tell me, how would you physically require people from the apartment building to use that long access and stop people from Benihana or Boscov's from using that long driveway along the turnpike? How would you do it? You're not going to do.
Oh, I'm not saying restrict anyone else from using it. I'm just saying the new cars, 91 cars in the morning, 91 cars in the afternoon, for 300 units, that's only 30%, which sounds a little light. But if you don't have them going out to when they leave, not when they come in, just when they leave, if you don't have them going out to in front of the burger joint out that exit, you take a lot of pressure off of Germantown Pike. You take it on the Hickory Road, and they could go right. They could go right to White Marsh, or they make it left.
How are you going to do that? You've got the IKEA, you've got the driveway there to get to the IKEA parking lot.
No, not coming in, going out.
Are you going to stop somebody coming out of the apartments from using that driveway between the apartments and I'm sorry, Whole Foods?
No, I think you misunderstand what I'm saying. I'm talking about just the apartment complex traffic.
You're going to force them to make a right turn and not allow them to make a left turn.
No, I'm going to force them to use that yellow line and go out the Hickory Road when they want to leave.
How?
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 Oh, there's a lot of ways, I'm sure.
Well,
I'm not an engineer, but
Okay.
you know what? I've
what you
seen
could
seen
do-
it at baseball stadiums where the things pop up out of
Again,
the
what you
ground.
could
And
do, these are residents, these are people that live there all the time. you can have the property manager advise them. You can't make them, but advise them, please use the access out to Hickory. Because they're residents,
Don't you
you
think,
can advise them and.
okay,
over
but Joe, don't
time,
you
they'll
think they're gonna
understand.
take the quickest way out?
Right, they're gonna learn, you know what, that main access is a pain. I'm gonna go out Hickory sometimes, and they're gonna learn, oh, it's not that bad this time of day, I'm gonna go out the main access. They're gonna learn because they're gonna live there. So they're gonna learn, now's a good time to go out the main
I
access.
don't disagree with that.
Now's a good time to go out Hickory Road.
But I think you're gonna have more pain than you think. And if you could restrict them from exiting that way and using Hickory Road, it just takes tremendous amount of pressure off that center
And we
point.
approached it another way. We said, how do we make that main access work better? And that's what we think we're accomplishing.
Well, you're restriping it mostly, right?
Well, we're putting channelization so you can't.
Is there any reason why they haven't done that yet? Why are they waiting to do that? That's minimal cost, isn't it, to restripe the
Oh, no,
street?
that's a couple $100,000 in work that they gotta reconfigure that whole area. It's not,
It's more than restriping,
oh yeah, that's all reconstruction.
so there's construction. They're gonna have the road closed and construct.
Yeah, there's gonna be construction at that main axis, there's gonna be construction at the right end, there's gonna be construction at where the.
Well, the right end, you're gonna widen it.
Yeah,
But
that's.
the main access, you're just putting signs up and the last meeting, the last time this was up, it was just restriping.
No, that green is a channelized planted island.
Okay. Okay, no more questions. Thank you.
And I don't have any questions. I think we've spoke extensively on this topic. Mr. Solicitor?
No questions?
I do. I want you to look at, and I'll put it up there, the peak hour driveway volumes, your history of what you've done. I think it's, Joe, which is that?
Page 14.
Driveway volume history. Now, let me tell you what I would like you to focus on. When you and I have gone through this before, you have said to me that numerous times here,
I've got objections to really leading his witness here. Leading the witness, just let the witness talk. I don't know why he's telling
Trying
him what
to.
he said.
All right, Mark, ask him a question.
Joe, take us through each time that you did actual counts, then you did estimated counts, and then you came back and you did actual counts and compared them to the estimated counts.
Yeah, I think what Mark's referring to was we were kind of proud of our projection. The 2019 projected with repurposing of Macy's, that line, we projected what the traffic would be with the Macy's repurposed. And in 2020, when we actually counted it, we were pretty proud of how close we really, I think that's a good example of how good IT is, because we were able to, you can see in the morning, we projected 744, came in at 652. The afternoon, we projected 1745, we came in at 1762, and then Saturday, we projected 2446. So those 2019 projections were based on 2017 volumes with closure of Macy's, because we did an actual count 2017 with the closure of Macy's. And then we estimated, okay, what if you put in the Dick's and you put in the Miller's Ale House or whatever else was part of the repurposing, what would IT say the total trips would be? And that was that 2019 projected. And then we actually counted it in 2020, and the numbers were pretty good. And then we did we did adjustments in 2023 based on actual counts. You can see the traffic is a little bit less, particularly on Saturdays, a lot less. And then the 2026 projection is, again, we factored everything in, including the office tower is in those numbers too. The new driveway volumes we anticipate are going to be those numbers that we see for 2026.
No further questions?
Can I have a follow-up on this?
I have no fronts there.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's all right. Mr. Creel?
So, I mean, I think this is a great slide here, but I think we need a little more color on it to understand what was happening at the mall. And, you know, the footnotes only mention COVID, but they don't, and you do mention that completion of wholesale foods and restaurants and closure of Macy's. But 2006, like what was happening at the mall? Was it 100% occupancy at that time?
Well, again,
There wasn't any food pads
that's
at the
20 years
time,
ago.
right? Well, you're showing it here
Well,
and you're
I
making
know.
reference to
Well,
it.
because
We
had
have to
our-
know about it,
Because we had
right?
our traffic study from 2006, which had the driveway volumes in there. That's, I can tell you, when we did that study, it was because the mall was changing, was cutting out some of the retail and putting in restaurants. That's why we did this study.
Okay.
And those were the actual counts in the driveways for that study.
But I'll just say this, and the reason I asked the question is because you questioned the credibility. Numerous times in your questioning, you questioned the credibility of the ITE numbers. I heard it 2 or 3 or 4 times. I wanted Joe to show what happens when he estimates and then when he comes back.
Check to Mr. Kevin's testifying here.
He's just explaining what the exhibit does. We can.
So that was a computer software, a model that generated those estimates? Is that how that was done?
It wasn't that sophisticated. It's spreadsheets that we use, but it's based on ITE data that we input. And there's all statistical analysis. If you have different uses, they interact. We thought it was pretty good that how well it predicted.
The 2026 projected with apartments, that includes the proposed 300, the proposed 150?
Yes.
What about the guts of the mall? Are they still half empty? Are they 100% occupied? What's the estimation there?
Yeah, we did talk about the occupancy. I think we just maintain the current occupancy, which isn't that bad. So, it wasn't like half. I think it's like 70 or 80% occupied.
I don't know about that. It's not great.
So we did not adjust for occupancy. That's your question.
So it's existing occupancy.
Yeah, whatever.
Okay. Thanks.
Any other questions for Mr. DeSantis from anybody? Okay. Next witness, Mr. Cass.
Sorry, can we take a brief bathroom break?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Just give me a few minutes.
5 minutes.
Me too.
I asked too many questions.
Shows you paying attention.
So wait, did it say how much of a right of way we have to have?
I just, no, I was just looking, I just did a quick thing. Is a sidewalk considered a right of way? Some people, no,
A member of the public.
I'm just a member.
people on the sidewalk have the right of way. That's in public
Can
health.
do is after all the testimony is over and done, and we ask for public comment, that's when you can come up and address the board.
Normally they don't take this long. This is multiple night testimony. Normally it's like one night and then everybody can ask all the questions. This goes on like the third night, and I'm not sure how many more it might go over a night or two. Once we're done that, then we can ask all the questions we want.
Okay.
PennDOT was also traffic
Good job.
I know more about this mall than any other mall anywhere.
So they have an old time
It's time.
because when I was on council, when I came on the job, really, 2 cars. Everybody's complaining, so I tried to get some sort of change. PennDOT control.
You will hear at some point, probably in about 5 minutes, a very loud
Right, I
intercom
think
will
they're-
scare you, saying that the building's closing in 15 minutes. Then you'll hear one at 5 of saying the building's closing in 5 minutes, and then it closes at
I'm gonna
9.
find out, like you're saying, they were supposed to be
What's that?
synchronized for the traffic. Like they're supposed to be synchronized. I don't know if they have been yet, but they're supposed to be.
I don't think we're going to get kicked out, but we're going to try to wrap it up depending on where we stand in the testimony. You have one more witness? All right, I really hope we can get
And
it
you'll
done
hear it
today. That would be great.
throughout this
You can
whole
wrap up around 9.
Did you guys call in any witnesses?
process.
Not today?
That
I
road,
mean,
the Hickory Road,
plan though.
it's a mulligan for these
You
guys
are
to
planning.
use.
Okay.
It's a slam dunk.
That's why I think the
We're gonna have to
residents
do it
will
till
get,
September,
they're gonna say, you know what,
August,
it's a bad
August
time to go that way. I'm gonna go this way. I think they'll learn.
We'll have it done. Should.
All these have 2 other applications, I talk to it all the time.
Yeah.
Fences,
Yeah, it's underutilized.
Yeah, I don't see those ones.
I'll get
Or
out
into the
and start
store.
these guys up.
Yes, exactly.
Like I said, I'm out like September 15th to the
Right into that parking.
Europe,
So right up to the first.
Zurich and Rome.
Nice.
Coming
Switzerland,
Backpack.
yeah,
IKEA,
that's
it's
awesome.
IKEA now.
That's
Almost like
tremendous.
your own brand.
Just tremendous.
Yeah,
Never
yeah.
been over there, so I'm
I don't
excited.
understand. why
Everybody that
they
I've
don't
ever been over
put
there,
signage or something.
like
Right.
Florence or Rome, everybody's eyes get, we're gonna love it.
And if
You're gonna love
that
it.
road went
I've
straight
been to
through,
Florence,
they
Rome.
can figure it out. They don't want to spend that much.
You going to
I know they
Venice?
Right while we do a day trip.
It's interesting.
We do 3 days in Florence, we might do a day
She
trip.
recommended, let them
I
turn it down.
recommend one of the days go to Venice, just to see.
But no, I
maybe
just,
take a
you know,
gondola
as
ride.
far as
It's
the
very
synchronizing of the lights, I know, I
Florence
do
is
wanna look
awesome.
into that.
You
The
can walk, it's
salt,
totally walkable.
the county was
Florence, you're
gonna do
right.
And the left turn on the left out, where you're going to propose
Rome
them when
is
you
just
come in.
bigger
That's
and
going to
there's
be require
see.
some stop sign somewhere.
Be careful.
Or it's when you channelize it,
Yeah,
they
so
continue, they
September.
just flow in and go
Right,
down.
they flow in. Right now, there's a stop sign. If you're
We went down to
coming down and you want to make a left on the Germantown Pike there, because there's an out
Herbalon's
there.
nice.
We're
It's
gonna
an
do
in and
7
an out.
days in a Swiss
But
Alps.
there's no signal.
Just get off the train and stay in this little town.
Yeah, it's where you're going to propose all the right turns. Coming in. Instead of making a right at the main entrance and making a left, you're going to make
So
them go down,
Backpack, man.
make a right, and then
Yeah,
okay. But when they go down and make that right, they don't have a stop sign.
they have the right of way.
They have the right of way. You have a stop sign there. But if you go and you don't see somebody coming too fast, you're getting clipped. I use that one all the time. Right. I very rarely use that main intersection because it's always, it's too effed up for the road. And I think the burger joint makes it worse. They're making money, right?
That doesn't,
What's the next one?
that's so bad.
Sewer. I think so.
But it's just, it's the location of the burger joint. Now all the Michaels and Dixons there, and what's the name of it? It's not a TGF Fridays. No, all those people are going out there. They should be directed to the other side and get on the road.
Yeah, I think you and I talked about that. I think that's something we could look into. We push them to the other
I
side
mean,
of the burger joint.
it makes it just a pain in the butt when you're driving, but it's much safer.
Right. But I think, I'd like to get this in place, see how much it improves. If it's still a problem like you're saying, I think we could close it off and force them to go on the other side of the building.
Winter record.
The time is now 8:45, and the Greater Plymouth Community will be closing in 15 minutes.
Quickly. It's the
5 minutes out, they say you start making your way toward the exit.
Brookshire had to give a little bit of township. So
That's what David said. They want to
took quick claim deeds to the order of deeds, and they said, well, where's your transfer? Where's your realty transfer? Well, it's vacated right of way. Well, this is a quick claim deed, and they, property, real property, that must have some value, but we don't know if it does or not. So we're not going to, we can't accept these from court. So I think we're going to try to deeds of corruption. And the new right saying this is now part of their property from them to themselves. I wrote an email to Majewski and said, hey, this is what? From when one house was built in Newton, why they sold Whole Foods? So finally, so Larry should be happy. He's got all the parcels, and C and E and the open space and all that recorded. So then we start building and finishing I got to go ultimately cut a final check to the contractor and close that account and return the rest of it to your guys.
Redstone,
When it first do whatever that expression is, it never ends.
No,
It never ends. I've had this so many times when you change that road and you leave what was a pride.
Right.
Who you want to give it to.
Right. And this is actually easy because it's only on one side of the road that matters. You don't have to worry about the center line and who owns this and who owns this.
disappointed in Ben. Used to go to the park ever since the pandemic. The pandemic.
Okay, Mr. Kaplan, your next witness, please. Sure.
So who's coming next?
Robert Campbell?
I guess I could go back in, right? I'm not using this.
Spell it.
C-A-M-P-E-L-L.
Raise your hand, please, or do you sign this or affirm the testimony that you are listening to is the truth and the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Who are you employed by?
Tony Associates.
I'd like everybody to turn to a document that we've numbered 15. I'd like you to identify it.
Yeah. It's my,
And does that accurately reflect your educational and professional background?
yes, yes.
So please describe your educational background for the board.
I graduated in 1994 from Penn State University with a Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering,
And what was your focus?
fluid dynamics.
What is your profession?
Water and sewer engineer.
And how long have you been practicing as a water and sewer engineer?
Over 28 years.
Tell us a little bit more about your employment background as it relates to sewer engineering.
I am the authority engineer for Morrisville and other Southampton municipal authorities, both water and sewer systems. I assist with work in Aqua, Limerick, Lower Merion, and multiple other municipalities doing water and sewer work, focused on the rehabilitation of existing facilities, design and construction of new facilities.
And what is your title as Benoni Associates?
I'm a senior engineer.
And what kind of clients do you usually represent?
Municipal authorities and private utilities.
I think you've told us the municipalities that you represent.
Yes.
I would offer Mr. Campbell as an expert in civil engineering with a specialty in water and sewer engineering. And ask that the board accept it.
Mr. Musso.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, of course. I just have one question for Mr. Campbell. Exhibit 15 says you're status as a professional engineer expired about 4 years ago, is that correct?
No,
It
that's
says
not correct.
EXP 9/30/19.
That is not correct. No, it hasn't updated. It is
So-
active. It is currently active.
Exhibit 15 is wrong.
Correct. Yeah, I am actively.
With the current
Expiration
expiration
date,
date.
the current expiration date of, it's now September of 2023.
Okay, so it's coming up.
Yes, that renewal comes up in the end of September.
You just didn't update this for some reason? I mean, what if somebody's status expired? Would that be significant?
Yeah, yes.
Then you couldn't have all these roles that you were going to have, I guess?
Correct, I need to present myself as a professional
You
engineer.
just didn't notice this?
I did not.
Like in the last 4 years?
Yes.
Yes, good answer, objection.
That was it, that was the.
Sustained. Any objection to Mr. Campbell being admitted as an expert in, once again,
Well, it's really sewer engineering.
sewer engineering?
Yeah, I guess I would just like some evidence that he's currently a professional.
Mr. Kaplan, will you supply that to council? And we will hold that objection in abeyance until he receives that information.
I would make this comment, whether he's a licensed professional engineer or not, is not a great moment in Pennsylvania.
We'll still,
So we'll get it.
please provide
Yeah.
council with proof of the representation by Mr. Campbell that he is in fact actively licensed as a professional engineer in Pennsylvania. If he is, we will admit him as an expert in sewer engineering. And if he isn't, the board can take that into consideration when evaluating his testimony.
Are you familiar with the Plymouth Meeting Mall and the sewage collection system that serves the mall?
Yes.
And what were you asked to do in connection with the development of the proposed apartment building that is the subject of this hearing?
Was asked to evaluate the sewer capacity in the existing collection and conveyance system and identify whether or not there's capacity available to convey flows from the proposed 300-unit apartment.
Now, you did a report about 2 years ago when we were here for 506 units. Have you revised your report,
Yes.
or have you prepared a new report?
I have revised the report.
And is that report marked Exhibit A16 in everybody's book?
Yes.
What steps did you take related to this current request?
I revised the proposed flow, proposed discharge flow from the apartment complex from 504 units down to 300 units, utilizing the existing capacity.
Now, after you did that revision and you looked at all the materials, what is your conclusion with regard to availability of sewer capacity?
Their sanitary sewer conveyance system has adequate capacity to convey the flow without being hydraulically overloaded.
So let's drill down a little on that. Could you tell us what the estimated additional gallonage of sewage that would be discharged into the sewer system will be from this revised 300-unit development?
So in order to calculate what the flow would be from the 300-unit development, we prepared a calculation of what the pump station would be discharging. The station would have, this apartment complex would need a pump station in order to discharge the flow, which is below the level of the existing sanitary sewer in Germantown Pike. The calculated flow was based on information provided to us by Creek, which uses water volumes at similar facilities. Estimated based on 300 units, would be 45,000 gallons per day. That pump station would come out to 120 gallons a minute based on that design. So we used 120 gallons per minute of discharge flow in order to determine what the the additional flow would be into the complex.
Now, in the previous application, you had identified what I think we called an alternate proposed sewer system or sewer pipe for the apartment development. I think that they had to do with manholes 918 to 915. Could you explain that? And
The time is now 8:55, and the Greater Plymouth Community Center will be closing in 5 minutes. At this time, you should be making your way towards the exit.
I forgot my question.
The existing discharge line leaving the mall also picks up flow from Narcissa Pump Station and areas to the west of Germantown Pike. That line, when it reaches Lawn Fall Road, the manhole becomes surcharged slightly. So we were unable to use that based on recommendations from Public Works. We did not convey the flow into that line. We didn't want to make the existing surcharge condition worse at Lawn Fall Road, at that Lawn Fall as it comes through an easement. Lawn Fall Road, directly across the road from the access drive, does not currently pick that up, and then that ties back in at Arthur Circle. So we proposed connecting directly into Germantown Pike and allowing the flow to be conveyed down Lawn Fall to Arthur Court, and then through the interceptor. It becomes a 12-inch interceptor that had updated back in several years ago. It was upgraded to a 12-inch pipe in order to increase the capacity of the system.
So Bob, let me turn this lights off. I put the township sewer map, or I asked you is what you see in front of you, township sewer map.
Yes.
So I think we want you to explain where this two different pipes are. If you want to use my computer and use the pointer, I think maybe that would help. Keypad, if you use the keypad.
Zoom in.
You can zoom in, yeah.
All right. The existing connection from Plymouth Meeting Mall comes out, manhole 903, flows down to Lawn Fall Circle through an easement. This manhole here, which I believe I don't have the number on that. That's the manhole that was declared surcharged by the Public Works Department. We're proposing the mall, the proposed apartment complex being down in this area, bringing it up, connecting into the gravity line here, which services Dunkin' Donuts, Luke Oil, a couple other properties, the mattress place, brings the sanitary sewer down to manhole 918, down Lawn Fall Road to manhole 915. From 915 down, this was increased in capacity from 8-inch line to a 12-inch line by pre.
And you've gone past manhole 960, is that 963 or
960, that is 968. 968 is where the sanitary sewer flow meter was installed. CSL was the company that performed flow monitoring.
Okay. You can come back. Maybe we turn the light back. Okay. what is the capacity of that route or pipe that you just described?
We look at the limiting capacity in the system. In the 12-inch line, the limiting capacity is 1,476 gallons per minute. In the 8-inch, it's 344.
The time is now 9 o'clock, and the Greater Plymouth Community Center is now closed.
I'm sorry, the 70,
8-inch line is 344 gallons per minute. That's the total pipe capacity.
That's the total pipe capacity. So you look at the most restricted section of that pipe, right?
Correct, and that is located just off of, in the 12-inch pipe, that's just off of the, between manholes 970 and 970A, which is just off the cul-de-sac.
Okay, so that would be a flatter area that where the pipe is flatter, there's less capacity.
Correct.
Okay. Now you told us what the limiting factor is. Can you tell us what did you calculate for that 8-inch sewer line to be the available sewer capacity?
The existing flow, based on the flow monitoring, through the 8-inch section, was about 20 gallons a minute, and that's actually high. The flow meter didn't even pick anything up. The flow meter was monitoring way lower than that. I used an estimated calculation based on the property usage along there, just to come up with 20 gallons per minute in flow.
And
So, I'm sorry.
so what does that leave you with once you subtract out the usage?
204 gallons per minute. Adding in 120 gallons a minute to the existing 20 brings us to 140 gallons a minute. 344 was the pipe capacity. That leaves you with 240 gallons per minute.
And how many gallons per minute of capacity did you calculate we need for the apartments?
120 gallons a minute.
So you have substantial excess, is that correct?
Yes.
Now that's the actual pipe, is that
That's
right?
correct. That's the 8-inch line along the long fall. For the 12-inch line, the pipe capacity was calculated using Hayes and Williams as 1,476 gallons per minute at the limiting point, as I mentioned. Proposed flow is 120 gallons a minute. So and then the metered peak existing flow was 638 gallons per minute. The majority of that flow is from the Narcissa pump station. So it's rather consistent. That peak is pretty consistent throughout time.
So could you convert this, you initially said that we need 45,000 gallons per day of capacity.
Well, we converted that to a design of a pump station. So the pump station of that size would be designed to convey 120 gallons per minute. That's peak flow rate.
Okay, so straighten me out here. Tell me how much capacity we need and how much capacity is available in this line.
So the total flow, including the apartment complex and the 12-inch line, would be 758 gallons per minute. Remaining capacity is 718 gallons.
And that's at peak.
That's at peak flow, yes.
So it sounds to me like, so that's for the 12-inch line.
Correct.
Is there a difference for the 8-inch line?
Yeah, there's hardly any flow right now in the 8-inch line. So while there's less capacity because it's 8-inch, there's still the majority of the flow. About 50% of full capacity of the line.
All right, that's where I was getting. At the hearings on our Preet's prior proposal, Township's expert, Mr. Mason, said that the sanitary sewer should be designed to flow at 50% of the pipe's capacity at peak usage. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Do you agree with that as a concept for design?
Yes, that is a standard design. However, that's not operations. So when you design it, you account for the ability to increase, have additional construction being tied into it. So the original design doesn't take into account the future. So you design it 50% from today, with the ability to increase that, accept additional flow in the future.
Okay. Now, but I think, Mr. Campbell, that what you've said to us is that at least with regard to the 12...
Objection to leading the witness.
I haven't said anything yet.
You just said us is this.
Overruled. Let's ask him the next question, please.
Sorry about that. Well made.
The question, now, I thought, Mr. Campbell, that what you said to us is that at least with regard to...
Okay. With regard to the 12-inch line, I believe that you said that the peak capacity was 750 something per minute, and that the capacity was double that, or just about double that.
Correct.
And is that 750 gallons per minute that you said would be usage, is that at peak?
Yes, that's
So then, you're saying that because we have the reduced flow from 500 apartments to 300 apartments, that the usage of, that the design capacity is 50%?
it's at about 50%.
And what about with regard to the 8-inch line?
The 8-inch line is running at about 25%, 30%.
Even with the apartments at peak usage?
Yes.
So, in your professional opinion, could you tell us whether there is enough capacity in the lines that you've described to convey the sewage that would be generated by the apartments? And if so, would you explain how you reached that conclusion?
Yes, there's adequate capacity in the conveyance system based on the analysis of the existing flow, which was conducted through flow monitoring, and the estimated discharge from the pump station, which would be contributed to the system. There's more than adequate capacity in the system.
And I asked you to check in on what the township's usage of its sewer lines. Do you recall me asking you to do that?
Yes, the township produces a Chapter 94 report every year. That Chapter 94 report does an analysis of the interceptors throughout the system. 4 main interceptors were identified in the Chapter 94 report with their capacity and their current flow rates. The capacity currently...
Well, let me stop you. Would you identify Exhibit 20 in the book?
That is the short version. That's the questionnaire that gets submitted to the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Engineering that summarizes the Chapter 94 analysis.
And is that the township's document?
Yes.
And where did you get that?
From the township.
Okay, so I'm going to bring up a chart.
It's the 2020 version.
And I have on the board paragraphs 7 and 8. And I believe that I would like you to explain what paragraph 8 projected peak flows relates, what it says.
So those are four of the main interceptors in the township. What it does is it identifies the limiting section of capacity within each of those interceptors and defines them based on millions of gallons per day for what their peak capacity would be.
So let's take the Sawmill Run. What is its peak capacity?
4 million gallons a day.
And this report tells us that projecting from 2019 to 2023, what would the usage be?
2.8 million gallons a day.
And that's obviously in excess of 50%, is it not?
That is correct.
Now, how about the Plymouth Creek interceptor?
The capacity is identified as 1 million gallons a day.
And what's the projection over the 5 years?
700,000 gallons per day.
Again, more than 50%.
Correct.
Plymouth Road, I guess Plymouth Road and Chemical Road look to be identical numbers in the township's report.
Correct.
And tell us what they were.
1 million gallons a day, projected 700,000 gallons a day.
I have no further questions for Mr. Campbell.
Mr. Musso.
Thank you. So, Mr. Campbell, you were here for the traffic report, correct?
Yeah.
And I heard that at least part of his traffic report took into account the 150 apartments at Keystone.
Yes.
Your report does not take into account.
No, it's not.
And do you think those 150 apartments at Keystone, would they also use water?
I would suspect so.
Okay, and so they would flow through these pipes as well?
I don't know where they're proposing to discharge, but yes.
And then on page 2 of your report, do you have that in front of you?
Yes.
We don't even have it.
No, I have.
All right, so capacity analysis is about midway down the page.
Yep.
And you talk about, I think it's the second sentence, is that section of the main consists of a 12-inch diameter PVC pipe at 50% slope, is that correct?
Yes.
Do you understand that is not PVC pipe?
I have it.
Okay.
It doesn't make a
It's
significant.
a ductile iron pipe?
It's not going to make a difference.
Okay, so your testimony that doesn't make a difference to your analysis whether it's PVC or ductile. And I believe you said you did agree that the proper way to design these systems is at 50% capacity.
For design purposes.
No further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Musso. Board questions for Mr. Campbell?
Mr. Higgins?
No question.
Mr. Daly?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When we talk about the mention of the significant rain event, like one significant rain event in 2020 made me think, have your projections accounted for potential for many more heavy rainfall events given climate change and how rapidly it's occurring? You know, we've seen biblical rain here about 3 times in the last 3 weeks.
The DEP certainly takes that into account when you're required to do the design of the system. Right, so that's also taken into account when you're doing that 50%. of capacity. What we saw from the flow monitoring, though, was that rainfall had very little impact. Understanding that the majority of the flow, as I mentioned, comes from the Narcissa pump station. So that flow rate coming into this line is controlled by the ability to pump. Right? So if that pump runs at 250 gallons a minute, then that's what you're going to be seeing on the discharge side. So the majority of the flow to this area of the system is coming from Narcissa pump station, and it is controlled, that rate is controlled by the pump. And I actually suspect that there is I&I in that area of the system. It's just by the time it reaches this area of the system, it's controlled. And it can only pump at a certain rate.
So the rainwater doesn't, washing into the sewer system, say from Germantown Pike, or something like that, does
The stormwater, no, we're not. Either the stormwater is well controlled in that area, so it stays in the stormwater system.
Okay.
But we didn't observe stormwater getting into sanitary sewer system.
Okay, this is a naive question, but the stormwater and sanitary systems are separate.
Correct.
Okay, I didn't know that. Okay, thanks.
Further
I'm
questions?
finished. No, that's it. Thank you.
Mr. Krill?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I thought sanitary sewer and storm sewer were separate. I have a couple questions, more clarification. And this slides up, so I'll ask this one first. We talked about projected peak flows. So are they actual? Or why wouldn't they be actual? I mean, that's all historical, right?
Typically, when you're doing a Chapter 94 report, you're using the historical data and then projecting based on what the proposed development is in the future. So your projected is going to account for additional flow into each one of those interceptors. I did not prepare this report, so I'm not sure why those would be the same unless there's...
Okay, so just based on that, they are not projecting any additional development for 5 years?
That does not appear that way, or any significant development that would significantly change the flow.
And then the 50% comment got me confused. If 2.8 gallons are going through a 4.0, isn't that more than 50%?
Right, so 50% is design. You design it at 50% of what you know. And it allows you to grow in the future, which is what these lines have. If we can scroll up to item 9 below. Right, so it actually says the township does not anticipate that the limiting capacity of the sewers of the interceptors will be exceeded. Right, so it's while it was designed at 50% of capacity when it was originally constructed, the flows through the system now exceed 50% of capacity, and states that the township does not anticipate the limiting capacity to be exceeded.
So the excess capacity is not 50% anymore?
Correct.
Okay.
Right, the excess
I thought
capacity.
you guys were saying it was.
No. Well, our projected capacity in Arthur's Court is probably about 48, 49% is still the available capacity, even after the development.
Okay.
Mr. Acoli, what we were saying is that when we were here the last time, we were told by the township's engineer that we couldn't get into this line because you could only use 50% of the pipe. And this is the township's report prepared by that engineer saying something, well, he asked the question.
Well, all right, let him ask the witness questions.
Hey, Mark, can we go back to the other slide with the manhole numbers?
Okay, sure. Let me find it. That was 19, I think.
The answer to that question is, it's not 50% excess anymore. That's
Correct.
That's all I didn't understand. And on this slide, I just wanted some clarification. Where is 8 inches, and then where does it go to 12
From
inches?
918 down to 915, there is 8 inches. And then at that point, at the intersection of Arthur's Court and Lawnfall, that was upgraded to 12 inch.
So at 915, that's where Arthur's Court and Longfall intersect,
Correct.
and then it gets bigger.
Correct.
So it can take more capacity after 915.
Correct.
And then from 915 to 918, there's at least if that other report was right, and they're using 70%, at least 30% excess, or am I wrong?
There's 70% excess, 30% of it is flow. 20%, there would be 70% excess.
So that projected forecast of 2.8 and 0.7
That was not for this particular piece of line.
That's the township interceptors. The point of that was, we were told that the limiting factor in a sewer system is 50%, right, by the sewer engineer.
Okay.
Said that you can't exceed 50%, and that's why this system doesn't have capacity. The point was, your existing system, your existing interceptors are already exceeding 50% and have been exceeding 50% from at least 2019 based on that.
Based on that report.
And the statement was made in that report that the township doesn't need to improve this because it does not reach the limiting capacity.
And that was these interceptors, or they were different?
That was, I don't know exactly where those interceptors are located.
Well, one's
But-
at Plymouth Road, right?
One's Plymouth, what was it? Two of them. Sawmill, Plymouth. Sawmill, Plymouth Creek, Plymouth Road, and Chemical Road.
So that's all further down.
I think so.
Do they do that report for these interceptors or not? Or
Uh,
was there not an interceptor here?
Not necessarily, I would consider it to be an interceptor, but it might not be a defined interceptor by the DEP, so it might not be required.
Okay. You said you measured flow out of the mall and it was minimal?
The proposed flow, the existing flow out of the mall goes through manhole 903 in Germantown Pike, runs down through an easement down to Lawn Fall Road, and Lawn Fall makes that L
Okay.
shape there, right?
That's all 8-inch pipe?
That's all 8-inch pipe. correct.
And did you measure that flow?
I did not measure that flow. It was included in the total evaluation for the 12-inch, but we did not measure that independently.
But it was measured. Did that company measure it?
They measured the 12-inch. They measured what's in the 12-inch line, which is where we proposed to convey the flow. So we evaluated the 12-inch line. We did not evaluate the existing coming out of the mall.
Okay. Do you know what time of the day they measured it?
It was for a 1-month period continuously. It's continuous with the full night.
Okay. So it's not like in the middle of the night when nobody's using the toilets and stuff
In
like
fact, it was
that?
done 2 years ago. Was it, Bob?
I have 2020, I think there was some data from 2017 also.
Okay.
But that wasn't accepted. This was-
So, and I don't live in this neighborhood, but I hear war stories about stuff coming up from the toilets. What will cause that? Like
Sewage? coming
like
out?
the sewage is coming out of the toilets. Is that right?
I think that's what it's called.
Like if we got all this capacity and excess and all that, how could stuff back up in somebody's basement?
Yeah.
How's that happening? What's the problem?
Either their lines are completely flat, and they're not able to get the flow out.
That's individual houses.
That's individual houses.
Right. But not everybody's house would do that.
I wouldn't expect any of them to do that
Okay.
in this area.
I just had to ask that question because I don't understand it.
Right, or there's an issue in their lateral.
Their lateral is their house to the main,
Correct.
right? That's all I got. Thank you.
Commissioner Drill. Just a couple of questions. So, first of all, your initial idea was to tie into the 8-inch at Longfall, and the township said that wasn't acceptable?
Correct. We were going to tie into the Plymouth Meeting Mall system on the lot and convey it over into that into that easement, into that line that ran down the easement.
And it was agreed that that wasn't feasible?
It was agreed that that line was surcharging at where it comes down and intersects Lawnfall Road.
Okay. You mentioned a pump or
Yes.
Where's that going to be located?
That would be located at the apartment complex.
And who's responsible for maintenance of the pump and inspecting that and all that?
I would assume that would be the apartment complex would be
So the-
responsible for that, it would be a private.
Whoever
sources.
owns that building would be responsible for proper maintenance of that pump and all. It's not under the township umbrella.
Unless the township wishes to take dedication of it.
So
So
we
that
don't-
would need to be private.
So we don't know the answer to that right now?
But it's a longer story. There's an issue with DEP with regard to who owns pump stations. In a commercial development like this, I believe that they would have no trouble with us owning it. In a homeowners association, they don't like to do it anymore because they had some bad experience.
I guess the bottom line is, would it provide additional cost to the township? So the apartment complex would own it, maintenance it, fix it, inspect it?
The way it works with a private pump station, so I think that would be the intent, is that it's a private pump station. It is owned, maintained, operated by, in this case, Peter, the apartment manager. The township, through the planning module, accepts that this is there. Ultimately, the township has the responsibility to get the developer to provide any necessary documentation or any required documentation to show that they're performing the work.
So finish that. So there's usually, Dave, what do you call it? There's a,
It's an O&M agreement.
yeah, there's an O&M agreement, an operation and maintenance agreement between the developer and the township.
That's right.
That obligates the developer to maintain it, and gives the township the right to come in and inspect it. And if we screw up and we don't fix it, the township has to come in, and we're gonna pay them back.
Right, that's it.
All right, so I remember in previous testimony that there was an issue down by the railroad tracks where two pipes came into one and all that. Has that been resolved?
That's, as far as I know, that's been around. I mean, that was around when Metroplex was constructed.
Right.
I'm not aware that it's been resolved.
So that still might be an issue down Valley.
I assume so.
Other than that, I mean, so is it your position that that the existing infrastructure is fully capable of accepting 300 units?
Yes.
No improvements needed, no...
The township has that line across the railroad tracks that has been it's been discussed for many, many years.
So that's a potential improvement that may be needed?
I think that's a potential improvement that might be needed. I don't know that that would necessarily be Creek's responsibility.
Would this flow eventually traverse those pipes?
Yes. Yes.
So at some point, yeah, all right. So it's on the radar. Okay, no further questions. Thank you.
I don't have any questions. Redirect, Mr. Kaplan? Any cross, anything?
No.
Okay.
Can I ask one follow-up?
Absolutely, Mr.
You
Grillo.
talked about, sorry, Mark, and Dave just brought it up. You're talking about 300 units, right? And your measurement, as there's plenty of excess for 300 units, and there's another 150 units. So if you took your projection by 150%, what does that do to the numbers?
So,
Because theoretically, aren't they all pumping through the mall? Aren't they all going to the same place?
I'm not sure, we're not
I
sure.
don't know where they're going.
Well, where else could it go?
No, they're already in,
Objection to his testimony.
Mr. Campbell, do you know?
No, I have no idea.
Okay,
I haven't seen
that's
I haven't seen
the answer. That's the answer. He doesn't know.
Okay. Well, how about this question? If you took your forecast and took it by 150%, is there still excess?
Yes. Yeah, with 700,000 gallons a day of excess in the 12-inch line.
But you got to get to the 12-inch
I
line, right?
guess-
The
I
8-inch
guess,
line's
right.
in between.
Right, so I don't know. That's the part of this I don't know. I haven't. There was a sewer report that they're required to prepare in accordance with the zoning requirements. I haven't seen that sewer report, so I don't know where they're proposing to send their sewage. So that sewage, the 150 unit Keystone development. So I don't know where they're proposing to send that. You're asking me, is there capacity in the line? I've already identified that there is an existing limitation on capacity through that easement I don't know if.
That's
I
the
don't know how
8-inch
that
pipe,
impacts
right?
it, Right?
Does that mean the surge? Is that what you're talking about?
It's not coming up out of the ground,
It's just full.
but it is coming up in the, it's raising above the channel.
Is that why it's coming in people's basements?
I would not suspect that.
Okay.
That's upstream. That's before the 12 inch. Where do you believe it's coming in basements?
Down to Arthur's Court, and that
In
our
Arthur's
colleague, Ms. Lettich, is the one who knows that. She lives in that area,
Okay.
the one who has the anecdotal evidence. She's unfortunately not here tonight.
So I have one more question, just
Okay.
to try and put a close on.
Understood.
The 8-inch line that you're talking about, that is surcharging, you're not going to use that.
Correct.
Across the street or very close by, there's another line, another 8-inch line. It goes and then connects to a 12-inch line. And there's, you said, very, very little flow in that 8-inch line.
Correct.
And there's enough flow in the 12-inch line.
Yes.
That's why
Yes.
we
Does
don't
that
know-
mean 2 8-inch lines go to the 12-inch line?
Yes.
Separately?
Yes.
One 8-inch don't go into the other one and then it goes?
No. They come down, one runs through the easement, ties into Lawn Fall. There's actually another line that comes down Lawn Fall, right, and ties in, that's at Arthur's Court. So the 2 8-inch come together, that's the restricting area. From there, it goes to the 12-inch and goes out Arthur's Court. The other line comes down off of Germantown, Lawn Fall, and ties in to the 12-inch. So those two lines, while they come together in the
They
same
run
manhole,
parallel.
they lead us in the 12-inch.
They run parallel till they get to
Correct.
the 8-inch line, to the 12-inch
12-inch
line?
line, correct.
Okay. Very helpful, thank you.
I have one further question, Mr. Solicitor, Mr. Chairman. if I may. Are we at any point going to be able to see a consolidated study that, accounts for both Prius and Keystone's potential volume usage, or sewage volume usage?
Different developers, I don't know.
If we're off the record, I can tell you, I talked to...
All right, we're not off the record. Let him, before you say anything. Yeah, the answer is he doesn't know.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
That's
he
fine.
doesn't.
That was directed at anybody. who would be able to answer
Let's
it,
hold
too.
that, hold that.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Keenan? Okay. We're not going to start another witness tonight. You don't have any other witnesses, Mr. Kaplan? Okay. Mr. Musso, you will be calling witnesses?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. We will currently, let's go off the record. Currently, the next meeting of this board is August 21st, at which time there are currently two residential applications. I think a fence and a shed that Mr. Rowe mentioned. I think we can hear those and then continue with this hearing. Do we anticipate we can finish on the 21st? Yeah. Everybody good?
We potentially could finish, depending.
No, I understand. Okay. Let's go back on the record. I would recommend to the board that one of the members make a motion to continue this hearing to Monday, August 21st at 7 o'clock p.m. At the Greater Plymouth Community Center.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Solicitor.
Is there a second?
A second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, we are continued to the 21st.